Hey Divi Nation, thank you for joining us in this live stream, and today I will show you how to create an expanding sticky menu with Divi and the mechanic layout pack. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure that you do. I've mentioned a link in the description below. And if you're not an Elegant Themes member yet, make sure that you check out Divi. I've mentioned a link to the product page where you can go ahead and discover everything for yourself. So without any further ado, let's get to it. All right, so let's start off by taking a quick look at the mechanic layout pack. So this is the overall look and feel that you can expect from it. And if you want to lay your hands on it, you can go to elegantthemes.com/layout and layouts. And over here, you can find all of the layout packs again, and go ahead and scroll down until you come across the mechanic layout pack, and then you'll see all of the layouts that come with this layout pack, and you can join to download or view the live demo to view all of the layouts for yourself. So in this tutorial, we're going to show you how to create expanding and sticky menus with Divi, and we'll just demonstrate what that looks like in advance. So here we have this sticky menu over here at the bottom, and if you hover it, a menu will appear. So this is the first example that we'll recreate, and it's a hover effect on desktop and on smaller devices, on mobile. It will be triggered when somebody touches it. And let's take a quick look at the second example as well. All right, so this is the second example. We have this corner over here, and when we hover it, a nice menu appears. And let's just take a quick look at the responsiveness of this one in particular, for instance. So both of them will be responsive and will work across all screen sizes. But let's take a quick look at the outcome. So if I open this module over here, I'll be able to switch over to hover options for you guys to see what the outcome is. So this is the hover option on desktop, but I'll just have to give me 1 sec. I'll just exit the visual builder and shrink the size of my browser for you guys to be able to see it. All right. So as the screen size becomes smaller, the menu shrinks as well. So we'll go through all of the steps towards creating this kind of sticky expanding menu for your own website. And of course, you can tweak it and make it look exactly the way you want to using Divi's built-in options. So let's get started with the first example. And what you'll need to do is open a new page, create a new page, and add one of the mechanic layout pack layouts to it. So the ones that we're recreating particularly match this layout pack. But of course, you can modify all of these settings to make it look exactly the way you want to, but we're just going to enable it on the service page over here. And afterwards, so in the blog post, you'll notice that we'll start off by hiding the primary menu bar, but we'll do this at the end of this tutorial. So let's start by enabling the visual builder. So it doesn't really matter if you start with it or if you end with it, but for the sake of being able to navigate through this menu throughout the tutorial, I'm going to leave it for last. So the first thing you will need to do is add a new section to the bottom of your page. And the reason why we're adding this to the bottom of our page is to make sure that it overlaps all of the content that comes before this. So all of the sections in the rows that come before this particular section, because as most of you guys know, whatever you add to the bottom of your page is the one thing that will have the highest Z index, so the priority above all of the other elements on your page. So we're going to open this section over here, and we're going to remove all of the default top and bottom padding to reduce the space that's being taken up. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the row sticky to the bottom of our page. So we don't need the section to be sticky, and therefore we're going to reduce all of the padding to make sure that nothing of the section shows up on our page, so we don't want it to show up at all. We only want the row to stick to the bottom, and making sure that the default padding is removed is a necessary step towards that. And then we'll continue by adding a new row using one column. And since we've deleted the custom padding, it might be a little bit hard to add that row now. But you can switch over to wireframe mode and just make it happen really quick. And we're also making sure that this row takes up the entire width of the screen by enabling the custom gutter width, giving it a value of 1, and adding 100% to both of these options over here, so the width and the max width, and this will make sure that the row takes up the entire width of the section and of the screen, since the section is attached to both sides of the screen. And next we're going to remove all of the custom padding over here as well. So even though we're going to make the row sticky, we're doing that to make sure that the module within the row becomes sticky, and this will just make sure that you have the freedom to play around with it. Nothing of the row in itself will show up as long as you don't add a background color to it. So we're again reducing the space that's being taken up by the row itself. And now we can make this row sticky to the bottom and make sure that it sticks to the bottom entirely by adding these 2 lines of CSS code to the main element of the row. And just to make sure, I'm also going to increase the Z index to 99 just to make sure that it stays on top of everything else. I think you'd be fine if you leave this out, but I don't know, it just gives this kind of feeling of being secure, I guess. And now we can start adding the module. So we need one module only. And before I do that, actually, since we have 2 examples, I'm going to save these settings. So this section in general, I'm going to save it because the steps that we've gone through up until now are the same for both examples. And just for the sake of not having to recreate it from scratch, I'm going to save it and then create the second example on another page. All right, so now I can start adding the module that I need, which is a text module. And over here, we're going to need 2 text styles. So the paragraph one and also an ordered list with links. So this is what you need in your content box. So you can see this over here, and this is just a character that I've reached out for and that you can get by going to the blog post in the description below. And when you come to this part of the tutorial, you will be able to copy this from the content that's written down over there. So this should be paragraph, and then you have an ordered list, and this represents all of the menu items that you want to show up. And of course, you'll need to add a link to each one of the menu items as well. All right, so once you have that, you can go to the background settings, and we're going to modify the background color. We'll make it white, and we'll change it on hover into a semi-transparent color, also in white. And let me just quickly show you guys the difference between the color when it's hovered and when it isn't. So here we have a entirely white color, and then over here we have this kind of gradient color with a entirely white color at the bottom and a semi-transparent color at the top. And the first step towards that is adding a default background color and a hover background color. And then we'll also need to add a gradient background color to the default settings. So the first color here is going to be entirely transparent, and this will just allow each one of the background colors to show up. So in the default state, that will be white, and when it's hovered, it'll be semi-transparent. So the bottom one will always remain white, but if it's just in its default state, it will be white on white, which, results into white anyway. And then we'll go to the text settings. So over here, we're going to use a font that is used throughout the entire layout pack, and we'll also change the text font weight and the text size. And as you can notice here, we're using a viewport unit, and this one takes the height of your screen into account and it makes it easier to have a text size that matches all of the different screen sizes. Because if you would use the viewport unit for the width of your screen, it would actually, demand from you that you change it across all screen sizes, whereas the height doesn't really do that. And then over here, we're going to change the text orientation into center. So this is where they will show up. And then we'll make some changes on hover, starting with the text color. So over here, we should have a text color that matches the layout pack, and then we'll change this color into a completely transparent one on hover for the menu text to disappear once it's being hovered. And we'll also remove all of the text size over here by enabling the hover option and adding 0. And then we'll go to the link text settings. And over here, we're going to use a black color for the link. And this will apply to all of the list items that we've added. And then we can go to the unordered list text settings. And over here, again, we're going to change the font. Make it uppercase. Center it, and then we'll add a completely transparent text color in the default state. And we'll also add 0 pixels to the text size, remove all of the line height as well. So we just basically want it to disappear when it is not being hovered. And then over here, we're going to change this to inside. So let me just take a quick look. So over here we have this, and when you hover it, everything disappears. And now to make sure that the menu items show up, we'll need to make a few changes, starting with the text color. So we're going to change that into black on hover. We'll also need to change the text size and the line height as well. And here it shows up. So this is what we have, the difference between the default state of the module and the hover state. And now we can start modifying the spacing values as well. So as you can notice over here, there's quite a difference there. And we'll start with the default padding and margin. So that'll be 45 for the left and the right margin. And two for the top and bottom padding. And then we'll need to modify these values across different screen sizes. So these are the values that are being changed for tablet. And these are the ones that are being changed for phone. But again, you can go to the blog post where you can find all of the different inputs, all of the different values that have been assigned to this text module, and just follow their step-by-step or read it off the screen, of course. So over here we have 39, and then we have 33. And then of course we're going to modify these values on hover, and we'll use 14 for the left and right margin and 8 for the top and the bottom margin. So this is the difference up until now. And then we'll go to the border settings, and over here we're going to make sure that the default value remains 0 pixels for each one of the corners, and then we'll modify this on hover. And to make sure that we have this kind of half circle going on, we're going to add some rounded corners to the top left and top right. And you cannot see it right now before we add the box shadow, but this adding these two values to the top left and the top right corner will help create that half circle, and then we can make it pop by adding a box shadow. So this will allow the shape to show up, as you can see. And we're going to increase the blur strength along with the shadow color to make sure that there's enough depth on the page and that people can easily distinguish the menu from the page itself. So let me just save this. And exit the visual builder for you guys to see it. So here we have it. And now we can go to the next example. I'm just going to enable the visual builder on the about page over here. And I'm going to add that same section that I've added to my Divi library to create a second example. So over here, I'm going to add a text module once again, and we're using the same content. So we're using the menu as a paragraph text style, and then we'll add an ordered list with links to the text module as well. And let me just grab that really quick and add it to the text module. And again, you can find all of the steps by going to the blog post in the description below. And along with all of the steps, you can also find this character over here, so this symbol, and copy it and use it for your own purposes. But you can also find it in your character map on Windows, and I'm not sure what it's called on Mac, but I know there's an equivalent of the character map there as well. Okay, so over here I'm going to change the background color once again, the default one, and then modify this color on hover. Here we have it. And then we'll go to the text settings. And again, this text setting applies to the menu copy over here. And we're going to make it match with the layout pack by changing the text font along with the text color and the text size. And then we'll modify these values on hover. So the text color is going to be entirely transparent when it's being hovered. And the text size is also going to be 0, which will allow the copy to be hidden in its hover state. And then we'll go to the link text settings, and this will apply to the links in the unordered list, and we'll give it a white color. And then we'll go to the unordered list text settings, and over here again we're going to use this font and use uppercase, center text alignment, and in its default state we don't want this text to show up, so we'll add an entirely transparent color to it along with 0 pixels for the text size. We'll also remove the line height just to reduce the space, as you can notice on the screen, and then we'll also change the style position to inside. And then we can modify these values on hover, starting with the text color. So it's the same kind of approach as with the first example. And over here, we're going to change the text color into white. So as you can notice, we're doing the same thing. We're changing the text settings in their default state and in their hover state to make sure that it shows up exactly the way we want to. And we're going to add a text size along with a line height to again distinguish the different menu items from one another. And you can now see them show up. If we go to hover, we have this, and then we have this hover state over here. And then we can go to the spacing settings, and this is also an important part of the responsiveness, I would say, of the menu. So you have to make sure that you modify all of the values according to the different screen sizes, and you can find all of the different values by going to the blog post, which I have mentioned in the description below. And I'm just going to copy those spacing settings and enter them here, and just go through them instead of adding them one by one. But I'll just make sure that they show up on the screen. All right, so here we have just a second. All right. All right, so here we have the default margin and padding values that are needed for desktop. So we add 88 to the right margin, 6 to the top padding, 4 to the bottom padding, and 1 to the left padding, just to create some space between the border of the page and the text itself. And then we'll modify these values across the different screen sizes. And that'll be 80 over here. And 71 over here. So you can find all of these different values by going to the blog post in the description below, or just type them off the screen. And then we'll also modify these values on hover, of course. So these are the ones that you'll need on hover. We've modified it this value over here along with the custom padding. And the next thing is making sure that there is this kind of quarter circle going on, as you can notice over here. So let's take a quick look once again. A quarter circle, and to do that, we'll go to the border settings and we'll add 50 using the viewport unit of width to the top right corner. And then we'll also add a box shadow. Increase the blur strength to create enough depth on the page, and use a slightly darker shadow color as well. And then we'll go to the transitions settings over here, and we can reduce the transition duration, so you can play around with all of these different settings and transitions to make it look exactly the way you want to. And now we should have the second example in place as well. And I see someone's asking on YouTube, is it possible to highlight the menu item that is active? And yes, but you'll probably need some custom CSS code lines for that. So for now we have this without the, highlighted menu item. And this was the second example that we've created. And let's take a quick look at the first one as well. So as mentioned before, you can find all of the steps by going to the blog post, which I've mentioned in the description below, and feel free to play around with all of the settings and to create your own kind of expanding sticky menus with Divi. All right, so that was it for this live stream. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and we hope that you're enjoying this ongoing Divi design initiative where we try to put something extra into your design toolbox each and every week. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video or live stream.